Welcome to Untold Radio. How you doing tonight, Doug?
I'm doing. Did you see that Untold Radio is not sponsored by Hanger One?
Yes, not sponsored.
No,
It's
not.
anti-sponsoring.
Yeah, anti. Anyhow, oh my God, I had a day. Uh, I was reading about brown noise. You ever heard of brown noise? You heard of white noise?
I've heard of white noise. Is brown noise what I think it is?
No, no. Well, that's what I thought when I first heard it. My brain just went right into the gutter. But I was reading about it. It's supposed to be the perfect sound.
Perfect.
So I thought
Really?
maybe we should try to incorporate brown noise in our background for the whole show. Just have some,
people like it 10% more.
yeah, I think. No, according to this, a whole lot more than that. In fact, it was funny because I did research on it. I had to go listen to brown noise. There are videos, and I swear to you that some guy just posted a bunch of basically ambient room sound. 456 million views. I want you to think about that. It's just silence.
That's it.
456 million views.
That's insane.
It's insane. I mean, you could put the world's biggest scientific discovery in the world. Aliens invaded. Bigfoot walked into the White House. It would probably get maybe 20,000 views.
Compared to that, yeah.
456 million. So I thought, well, it's worth talking about it, right?
Yeah, we need to sneak that on our show.
No, maybe we'll get 400 million views about it. But so I listened to it, and what it sounded like to me was like if you're in the woods and there was no crickets or no frogs or no anything, it would just kind of be like an ambient, kind of like grass moving. So, but it wasn't anything spectacular. I didn't feel like, oh my God, I'm so relaxed now.
It was subtle.
And I gave it, I put the headphones on and just kind of closed my eyes. I went, okay, I'm bored. So, but apparently people like it maybe for sleeping, and that's why they're getting so many.
Yeah.
Because each person's using it over and over and over and over again. That's got to be the key.
Or working.
Maybe we get a video of you like humming or something.
Yeah, Alex we could do
humming.
that.
Sleep Alex humming video. So I don't know. But so, okay. But not only is there this brown sound, but there was like the smoothed brown sound, super layered, smoothed brown sound. There were all these different types. It was just like crazy.
Just one thing. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know our very special secret guest is in the back room.
That's good.
It is 7:08, so you just let me know when we want to have him on.
I know time goes so quick. But anyhow, we didn't even talk about our guest tonight, so let's do that. We've got Lyle Blackburn on, and by God, the guy doesn't need any introduction.
Absolutely.
I think everybody knows who Lyle Blackburn is. If they don't, where have you been? He's pretty much, I would say, the celebrity cryptozoologist.
Yes.
He is the most branded cryptozoologist, the most recognizable cryptozoologist anywhere in the world, period. And I always picture Lyle going into his walk-in closet, okay? And he's got 10 exactly matching hats, 10 of the same T-shirts, same everything. But that's Lyle. Because when you see Lyle, if you see Lyle on the street, you know it's Lyle.
Well, I was going to say he's also the most sharply dressed.
Yeah, well, yeah, he does. He actually is. He's a great looking guy. He's got the rock and roll body, right? He is in a rock and roll band.
Yes.
So, yeah. So anyhow, so that's Lyle. Lyle's going to be on. And I'm going to ask Lyle questions he's never been asked. So Lyle, get ready if you're listening. So yeah, we do have another guest, just kind of a special guest, more of a tease because we're going to get him back on and, go through and spend the hour and a half with him. But we have Michael Freeman on, and he's just on the phone, so you're not going to see him. But Michael and I have been talking a lot lately. Obviously, I worked with his father quite a bit on the footage, on the Freeman footage. I came to obviously the conclusion it was extremely real. It just really didn't have any red flags. I mean, it was really amazing footage. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So I knew his father and really I met Michael about, I don't think it's been more than a month. But already we have a project going that you're working on too, Alex.
Yeah.
But Michael is writing it. It's a book called The Freeman Files. And it's going to have hundreds of photos that have never been seen, audio recordings that have never been heard. It's going to be an interactive book. And so let's go ahead and bring Michael on, and he can tell us more about everything.
Welcome aboard, Michael. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. How you doing,
Yes.
Michael?
I'm doing pretty good. I'd like to say hello to you guys. It's nice of you to invite me on. And to all the listeners out there as well, I hope you enjoy tonight's show.
Yeah, great. So you are Paul Freeman's youngest son, isn't that correct?
That is correct. I'm actually the youngest child. I have an older brother and an older sister. She recently passed, but I am the youngest.
Yeah. And the Freeman footage is kind of like Lyle Blackburn. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's heard of it. I don't know anybody who's never heard of the Freeman footage, personally.
I think I may have run across a few in my lifetime, but it seems like it's getting more popular. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, I would think it's akin to the Patterson footage because it's one of those pieces of footage where it's out in the open because it steps out into the open, and that's what makes it special. But you can see muscles. You can see the curvature of the body. And there's something for anybody that hasn't noticed about the curvature. Let's talk about that just a bit, Michael. What do you think the curvature is? You know what I'm talking about.
I'm assuming, yes, that you are talking about the size of the abdomen.
Yes.
On this creature. She certainly does, and I will say she, because I think that we are in agreement that that's probably what this is a female. And she certainly does appear to be either pregnant or very recently postpartum.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't even know if you have a memory, whether your dad ever talked, but I called your dad up one time and I said, Paul, I've actually got a looped section where you can see, I don't know if it's the same creature, but I believe it is, lifting an infant. And you can actually see the legs independently wrapping around the abdomen as if, like an infant would do if you pick it up, like a 2-year-old. They're going to wrap their legs around your stomach. And I remember how excited your dad was. Do you have any memories of that when you were young?
Of that particular moment of the footage, or just of the footage in general?
No. I don't mean the moment in the footage, but did your dad say anything to the family? Because he seemed really excited about that.
Yeah, and that's the first time that we ever had realized anything like that in the footage. It's not something that he realized when he was taking the footage.
Nope,
it's not something that he was paying attention to, or that he could have even seen, I believe,
right.
Through the eye lens of that camera. But I do remember when that started. And when people started talking about that, and when he started mentioning that this may be a possibility. So, I do have memories of that. Certainly added some excitement to the film. And I know, as well as you do, that we are currently working to be able to enhance the footage in hopes of trying to prove that, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, we're currently, actually, Blaine, my youngest son, is working on enhancements, and I'm sure you've seen him, Alex, working on that.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, we've got some really cool software that really wasn't available to the public just a very short time ago. And so it's government software that we're using to go ahead and do many, many levels of cleaning it up. And we hope to present it to the world in your new book, Michael.
Hopefully we can do that. Yes, we're very excited.
Yeah, it'll be really cool. There's also another event happening this August. Is it August?
August, yes. Actually, August 20th of this year, next month, will be the 30th anniversary of the film.
Wow.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon. And for those of you that don't know, that is Cliff Bergman's Bigfoot Center. We're actually going to do a special presentation about my father and the film. And hopefully, if everything turns out okay, we'll have a new enhanced version to go ahead and show the lucky ticket holders that get to attend that.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really cool. So, the book called The Freeman Files that I know you're working really hard on writing. It's going to be I'm really excited. It's going to be a really unique book. Very cool book. It's going to be a coffee table book. It's going to have tons of photos. But why don't you go ahead and talk about the personal stuff that you're writing about right now?
Yeah, I think at its heart, the book is going to be an evidence catalog. It's also going to have, some video and some audio from my father's personal collection.
Right.
And a lot of the audio was recorded in hopes of writing a book. It's something that he wanted to do about his life and about his search for Bigfoot. And unfortunately, that's something that didn't get realized before the time of his death. But I'm excited that I'm going to get to do that for him. And not only write that with the help of some really, really great individuals like yourself and also Cliff Bergman and Dr. Don Jeffrey Meldrum,
Yes.
just to name a few. We're going to have some other people come in there as well. But I'm excited to go ahead and get to write that. And I'm even more excited that I'm going to get to use these audio tapes that my dad recorded for his book. And we're going to get to put those in there for people to hear. So in a way, even though I'm writing it and I have, some help on research and some other people's words, in a way, it is going to be Paul Freeman's book. And a lot of what I'm doing in the book obviously centers around evidence and around his search for Bigfoot. But there's a lot of personal things in there too, just what life was like and, what he was like as a father and what all of us went through, during these 15 plus years of dedication that he put in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it really is like you said, it really is your dad's book. What's so cool about this book is there's going to be so much new information in there that's going to complement the one achievement because that was really only one achievement that your dad did was the Freeman footage. There were many others.
Yeah, correct. I mean, the footage, I guess you could say, was maybe his ultimate achievement, or at least it's viewed that way. But there were other achievements as well, going back to 1982 with the dermals. I mean, those were huge prints at the time, and they're still huge prints now. They've been housed in the Smithsonian Institution for many, many years. But there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of work that goes in between, and I think that even if you know who Paul Freeman is, even if you think that you're familiar with the evidence in his story,
Right.
We're going to have a few surprises for you. So it's definitely something that you're going to want to pick up. And there's going to be literally hours of audio in there and some video as well. So, really excited. Hopefully this is something that no one's ever seen. It's something that's never been done. And just, something that maybe, we can put my dad's legacy out there and it's going to last forever.
So what a lot of people don't understand is this is going to be a beautiful color print book, but it's in a lot of ways, it's a movie because it has interactive features throughout the book that people will be able to watch footage, look at or listen to audio right out of the print book. So it's going to be a really unique experience, and it's pretty cutting edge technology that we're doing. And I'm just super stoked. It's going to be probably the best use of this technology ever.
Yeah, we're all super stoked. We're excited, and I'm kind of viewing it not only as a book, but just as an entertainment experience in full. Let's get to know Paul Freeman. We're going to read words. We're going to hear his voice. We're going to see video. We're going to hear from other people that knew him. And like I said before, we're going to have some surprises for you, and everyone's going to learn some things that they didn't know.
Yeah. So the day that your dad actually got the footage, I can only imagine how excited he was. Although your dad was an outdoor hate to say this, but your dad was an outdoor badass.
Yes, he was.
He,
Yeah.
he was just, and he worked so hard at the research. I mean, how many people will visit a site day after day after day, or an area where there's activity, and be that dedicated? But something happened the day. I don't know if we want to give too much away, but something happened the day that caused him to get the footage, which is going to actually be revealed in the book. But also, you had kind of, you remember that day when he got the footage and where you were. Do you want to relay, just kind of summarize that story, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. August 20th, 1992 was the day that he got the Freeman footage. And just to clear it up real quick for everyone out there, if you see one on YouTube and it's got that 1994 copyright on there, that is not correct. It was 1992. So I want to clear that up because I hear that a lot. But getting back on path here, I was home that day. I was in the basement with some of my buddies. If I remember right, we had finished some late August football practice, playing some video games, just doing boy stuff, generally wasting time. And, you could hear my father come home, and you could feel my father come home. And when I say feel him come home, you always knew when he came through the door because he was a big man. But what, we really remember is him yelling, for my mom when he came through the door, and that Paul Freeman voice, Nancy Freeman, where are you at? And I don't think anyone that was there with us that day has ever forgotten, what happened and what they saw. And, that was 30 years ago. And I can tell you right now, it's the only proof for the existence of Bigfoot that I will ever need, because I saw it in my dad's eyes. And he was shaking, agitated, and he was scared. Something put a spook in him. And it's the only time in my entire life that I ever saw him scared of anything. And that includes the day that he died. And I never saw him scared of anything again after that. And, I always tell people, like, I don't need to see one, and I've never seen one with my own eyes. I've been close, but I've never seen one. I don't need to. And there's nothing anybody could ever tell me that would convince me that they're not real, because, I saw that in his face. And it shook me, and it gives me goosebumps to even talk about it. But, I have to expand on that just slightly, I have a buddy, his name's Ryan O'Neill. I saw him about 6 years ago and hadn't seen him in about 20 years. And he was there that day. And he told me 6 years ago, you know what, Mike, whenever we see that footage on a TV program, or whenever I see something on YouTube or wherever, I always tell my sons and whoever I'm with, I was there that day. I was one of the first people that ever saw that. And I knew Paul Freeman, and that right there is pretty cool.
It's very, very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Michael, we're out of time, but we're going to have you back soon. I'm thinking in August if we can figure out a date, but we're going to have you back for a full hour and a half and really get into some cool details. But thank you so much, because I know you just asked you here literally just a short time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you guys for having me on. And just real quick, if you'll let me, because I know she's listening, my sister-in-law, my wife's baby sister, Ariana Happy, is listening to the program tonight for the first time. And I just wanted to say hello to her and her husband, Nathan, and their daughter, Abby. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, we've got Lyle Blackburn in the back room. I do not want to keep Lyle Blackburn waiting.
Absolutely. So obviously he needs no introduction, but let me do it anyways.
Keep it short, Alex. Keep it short. The guy, he's sports.
Well, he's written like 100 books, so it's going to be tough, but we're going to get through this. So Lyle Blackburn, he's a native Texan. He's known for his work in writing, music, and film. He's the author of several acclaimed books, including The Beasts of Boggy Creek and Sinister Swamps. The subject matter reflects his lifelong fascination with the legendary creatures and the strange. Lyle is also the founder of the rock band Ghoultown and is a narrator and producer of documentary films such as The Mothman of Point Pleasant and The Boggy Creek Monster. Welcome aboard, Lyle. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
There he is. How you doing, Lyle?
Good. How are you?
Good. I haven't talked to you in a long. It's been a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, you just keep getting more and more famous. And I'm just like, so happy because I'm thinking, oh, Lyle Blackburn. Oh, he's speaking at another conference. I mean, you speak at probably more conferences and do more personal visits than anybody I know. You are one hardworking dude.
Yeah. I just love the subjects, and I love, I just say yes all the time. So sometimes I go, I can't do everything, but somehow I do. And so I just keep going.
Yeah, and I was going to call you one of these days and try to teach you how to say no.
Well, I didn't have that problem initially. I mean, and honestly, you right at the beginning when the Beast of Boggy Creek was blowing up, and you were one of the first guys that came to me and, we're talking about what else can we do. And,
right.
But at that time I could literally do everything. And so I just got in that habit. But yeah, it's just, like this subject has gotten so big. There's so many conferences now, and it just branches off. So I just, it's great though. I love it.
Well, think about how everything's changed from the point where you first started. Just got it. This goes back 25 years, 20. How long have you been in this, Lyle?
Well, it's a lifelong thing, but really, I started in earnest doing serious research about 2008 or so.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it hadn't been that long, but certainly before, pre-finding Bigfoot, conferences everywhere, all that stuff.
Yeah, boy, it's changed, doesn't it? It's just nuts.
Yeah, and especially Monster Quest. I mean, you're talking about that was so influential, and at a time when it's easier. Well, it's become easier to sell those subject matters, but at the time you were doing that, and that show influenced me as well, just in the quality of it, just the quality. And I'm like, I want to do quality research and writing and films or whatever of that nature. So it truly was influential when I saw the quality.
Awesome. So I want to take you probably some places maybe you haven't gone a whole lot, because I would imagine you do jillions of interviews constantly. But I want to try to let's talk about let's just start somewhere. Tell me about your parents, because you're obviously a man who's got a ton of curiosity. You have a ton of skills. You have musical skill, writing skills. You're a curious individual, far more curious than most people would ever be. What was different about mom and dad?
Well, that's kind of the irony here is I am so different than they are. I mean, just 180. And, I don't want to say I'm the black sheep of the family because, well, I do wear a black hat and everything, but, not so much in terms of the outcast, but just in terms of the difference. And my mom is always saying, I don't know where he got the musical talents or anything like that. But I think in the ways they were influential was that my father was a hunter, and that is his thing. And, he's old school, like bow hunting. He doesn't bother with GPSs or compasses or nothing. He just goes. And by taking me out into the woods and showing me nature and,
was he a quiet man, or did he talk a lot about the forest?
Quiet, super quiet. He just, we just did. I just went along, and the next thing we're sitting on a 2x4 up in a tree being silent. And I'm like 7 years old, we're looking for deer or whatever. He didn't say much, but that approach, just showing me and taking me along made me appreciate nature, which as I loved monsters and monster movies and stuff. And, my mom hates horror movies and everything. But once I kind of built that thing about, I love monster movies. And then I found out about cryptids, like, wow, this could be real life monsters. I was already familiar with, outdoors and remote and wooded areas and even small towns. So when I saw the legend of Boggy Creek when I was really little, and that's probably the best thing my parents ever did was take me to that at a drive-in theater. It all just snapped right there where I'm like, wow, it's like this old creepy old town. It's, you know, it's rural. There's hunting areas and people see a monster. And all
it's wholesome fear, Lyle. Wholesome fear. You know what I mean? It's good for kids, I think. It gets so many kids, it gets their imagination going. I'm not talking about taking your kid to a bloody, gory movie or something. But that movie gave me, I remember Stu seeing it. And it's just that creepy, but very wholesome fear because it's based on, you know, it's real events.
Yeah. And, you know, and the way it was approached, you know, and I think still the subject matter, there was no blood or gore I mean, it was just this spooky, shadowy thing in the woods that you didn't quite know. Is it ape? Is it man? Is it somewhere in between? Is there only one or is it a family? It was that mystery and just that shadowy shape in the woods that made it so scary, you know, and it would come out every once in a while or approach somebody's home where you should feel comfortable, yet this thing's lurking outside the window. That just intrigued me and the mystery. And so does all of Bigfoot, the encounters. You know, you're just hiking along and suddenly you see this shadow in the woods and, you know, what was that? And so, you know, my parents kind of set me up in that area, but the talents with the writing and I played in a rock band for years and traveled around the world and such. They were always just like, we don't have any idea where you got that from, but they appreciate it, you know, and appreciate that I carved my own path because I'm sure they were very worried about me in the beginning because I wasn't quite like the other kids, you know.
Well, you know, it's always possible they mixed you up at the hospital.
That is true, but I definitely look pretty much like my sister and a lot like my grandfather, so I was pretty sure it was, but that's a good theory, though.
So I can only imagine how your life has changed since 2008. Talk about that. I mean, does it ever just hit you? Like, oh my God, I'm living the dream. You're one of the few people that get to live the absolute dream. You do only what you love. Right.
It does. And I mean, most of the time when I'm on a show being interviewed, that's the times when I go, yeah, this is pretty cool, you know, and because I'm usually so immersed in just doing what I like and such, but it changed a lot. And the funny part was, you know, I was, ever since I was in high school, I joined rock bands and then later got signed on some record labels. So by my early 20s, I was already signed to record labels. And by my mid 20s, I was touring Europe and all kinds of stuff. So I was doing well with music, but I always had a good talent for writing and I loved writing and I was the lyricist for the band. You know, I had, you know, and as it went, I always wanted to write a book. And I felt that was something I would do one day as I'm sitting in tour buses reading Bigfoot books or whatever. And they're all going, what are you reading? That eventually, you know, I through a series of events led me towards that chance to write the book. And I thought, what is my favorite subject? What would I even write about? Boggy Creek. I love the movie. I love Bigfoot. I love the Southern feel. You know, I'm from Texas. That's just 3 hours away from me. I can research that. And then when that book came out, it was so surreal because I just wrote the book because I wanted to know. You know, it was like me on a personal search to know the story because I knew it was based on a true story, but I wanted to know exactly what the facts were. Which parts of the movie were reenactments and which were based on truth, whatever. So I wrote the book for myself, and then I was so surprised that suddenly, you know, I'm on Monsters and Mysteries in America talking about it. I'm finding Bigfoot, and I'm just thinking, yeah, just like what? And then it was the fastest selling book in the history of Anomalist, which is a publisher I had read many of their books and loved their subject. Thinking, wow, this is great. I thought, well, I'm going to keep this up, and then I just continued to do cases and write books, and it's just sort of been this strange path.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I think that if you're motivated by just doing what you're curious about, doing what you love, the money will come later. You know,
Right.
the universe will come along and support you. So many people are kind of stuck doing what they don't like, and at least they should try to find some hobby, something they can do that they really love to do, and maybe even try to turn it into a business, because then you're not working. I mean, when you're at a conference and you're speaking, I know damn well you do it for free because you just, you like people. I know you're really great. You're really good to people. You got a million fans out there. And I guarantee you would just go to those conferences anyhow. But you're there to speak and teach people what you know, and it's really cool. So you're definitely the poster child for cryptozoology success.
Well, thank you. I do get emails of people saying, I want to do what you do or get started. Where do I start? And you're right. It's just simply, I didn't think about this in terms of, I didn't even ever think the word career or anything. I just did what I did. And I got to stress that this isn't an overnight thing. Even with the bands, it is work. And like you say, the money will come if you do what you love and love doing it. And, you do have to do it well. If you do those two things and do it long enough, then you should always see success.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Very cool. So what's the one question you get asked the most? Because I want to avoid that question. What question do people ask you the most, Lyle?
Where did you buy your hat? Where did you get the hat? Yeah, so it's like, I'm like, well, it's not a place you can shop at, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's oddly enough probably the top question. But
that's funny.
The others are scattered about among. People know I went to some location and wrote a book about a case. Then if they're, they ask about something specific. So it's really fun to say, well, yeah, I was there. I talked to that guy, and here's what he said.
So have you had any personal? Because I do not know the answer to this. Have you had any personal experiences with paranormal, with Bigfoot mystery, with UFOs, anything?
Yes, I actually have, and while I see myself first and foremost sort of an investigative journalist, sort of the Indiana Jones of libraries, and it was never about me, but along this journey I have experienced things because I've tried to put myself there. Ironically, the first thing that really occurred that I would say is an epic moment was when I saw a ghost when I was a senior in high school. And at the time, I was one of those, I loved In Search Of. If it was UFOs and ghosts and Bigfoot, cryptids, I loved it all. And I loved ghosts. And I just was at a friend's house who had told me he and his parents had seen an apparition there, and even some of my friends. And just one evening I was sitting there and I saw this figure walk across a hallway just right there. And I was just floored. I said, I just saw the ghost. And my friend was just like, yeah, we see it all the time. It was no big deal. But I was like freaking out. So that was the first thing, even though I'm, the monster hunter guy. But in the years that's followed, I've been out plenty in the woods, even as a kid. I had several incidents in the Boggy Creek area, which, I've been there probably the most. And one of those was something that was howling at us as myself and my late friend Tom Shirley were paddling up this bayou late after midnight. And something began howling. And as it repeated it, we realized that it's not a coyote, it's not a bear or a cougar. This sounds to me like what people have described Bigfoot or the Beast of Boggy Creek as sounding like. And eventually it quit, but we paddled on back. And then all of a sudden, whatever this thing was started howling just across the bayou channel where we had put the canoe out by where our encampment was. I tried to get down there with a flashlight to see it, but whatever it was ran into the woods, howled again, and ran off.
Oh, wow.
Which was that's kind of a short version, but it was a very spooky experience, with the adrenaline flowing and, just like, God, that could have been this thing that, we could have seen it. In 2020, about a year ago, I was in that very same area, and I had a possible sighting. That day we had been in Fouke, Arkansas, and had been at a place called the Monster Mart, and a local had come up and told us that he believed he had seen, the legendary creature. He saw it pretty much during daylight hours, and he said it ran across a road, and he said, to me, it looked very reddish, and it looked like an orangutan. That was kind of his closest comparison. And, we're like, that's interesting. And I've heard that a few times, the red hair description or reddish brown. I didn't think much of it. I just kind of documented it like I do a lot of the other sightings and went on. But we were en route to visit a woman who had recorded some really, really good howls south of Fouke. And so we stopped at that bayou where, ironically, literally, I'm not making this up. We went down to this, there's like a boat ramp there, and this is way out in the middle of nowhere. It's you can't find this unless you just know where it is. I'm looking, and I'm with Jerry Hestand and also my girlfriend. And Jerry was on the Swamp Stalker episode of Monster Quest, and the one where, it was partly filmed in Fouke and partly up in Washita Mountains with the Texas guys. Well, Jerry and I have done a lot of research, and we were looking at two big, huge cypress trees, which are very distinctive and notable. And we were saying, yeah, you can see how different they are now than when the Monster Quest episode was shot. And they were putting that luminescent stuff on them. So I'm looking, and I see what looks like a shadow move, maybe 75 yards away over, and it's across the bayou channel, and it's in a place where there's no people over there. There's no people down there. There's no roads. This is public Sulphur River Wildlife Management area. There's no paths. There's no nothing over there. Well, I see this, and I think, well, maybe it's the wind kind of moving the trees. And I see it again, but it doesn't, I couldn't quite see it well enough to know. Seconds after that, right, maybe 15 yards behind that, I see a reddish something move diagonally right across that opening and disappear into the woods. And I mean, it was reddish and big, whatever it was. I couldn't see it well enough to say it had necessarily a Bigfoot shape, but whatever it was big, and it just disappeared. And I'm like, dude, I think I just saw maybe the creature. We had literally just talked to a guy that said he saw it. It looked like an orangutan. Chill bumps, and of course Jerry's like, I wasn't looking, I was like, I mean, it was just a flash of just movement. We went over there to investigate at a later time when we could get a boat and get back across there, and did sort of a reenactment or comparison, and absolutely no, there's no roads. It wasn't probably not anything other than something I can't quite explain. So that was about the best, what I consider, sighting that I've had so far.
So how tall do you think it was by your estimates?
Well, it had to be at 7-8 feet tall to be visible from that. And we did find this big diagonal log, and I felt that it could have walked up and over that log, which gave it that diagonal path, and also raised it up. I wasn't sure because I definitely couldn't see any legs. That was a problem, and so I could only see the upper part of whatever it was. if I could see legs walking, I'd have had a better idea of the shape. But it was big. Whatever.
Well, you kind of know what it was. Wasn't a fox, wasn't a raccoon, wasn't a black bear.
Right.
And that's the whole problem with this whole mystery. So many times there's so many sightings, you know exactly what it wasn't, but you didn't see enough details to know what it was. But what else could it have been?
It's kind of a process of elimination. And I mean, I even considered, okay, what other red creatures, a fox. But, when we were over there, it's like the fox would have been just absolutely too small at the distance. We did our best to guesstimate. So by process of elimination, and I don't claim, that I can say 100%,
right.
I saw a Bigfoot or whatever. It is what it is. But the whole thing is I've been in these situations. I was in the Ocala National Forest in Florida once and got pretty close to some big thing that had been sort of beating on a can. Apparently it hit, and I jumped into the woods and chased it. It was running one step ahead. There again, I just couldn't catch it. It would stop, and then as I moved, it would move. It just stayed one step ahead, but it was big and it was running. And even though I didn't see it, it's one of those things that keeps you on this path, because you're like, man, I could have been that close. It was right there.
It was a nudge. It was a nudge.
It wasn't the lottery yet, but it was close.
So David Ellis says he has a recording of something. Do you know what he's talking about? What recording David Ellis is talking about? He's with the Olympic Project.
Yeah, I know David. I'm not sure which recording that is.
David, can you be specific in the comments so
Which,
Alex can know? Maybe Alex can even send you a link and you could play it. We can get you on. So we'll see here.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, it may have been one that I've sent him, possibly. A lot of recordings come across the radar.
So it may not be a recording that you recorded, but one from the area.
Yeah. There's been some.
Okay.
I recorded that howl that we got, but it's so bad. The recording is so much ambient noise, because in those swamps you've got insects, bullfrogs, every night noise, and it never sounds like it does live. It's like you record it, and had we had a better parabolic microphone setup or what have you, it probably would have been better. But it's the times you don't have all that equipment
right
at your fingertips is when it was just when we recorded it on a small MP3 player, and ours sounds terrible. It wasn't even worth analyzing, because it's just literally not a representation. You just hear more frog than you do howl.
So Lyle, give me one word to describe the cypress swamps. One word, come on.
Spooky.
Okay. They're just so amazing. I mean, that's got to be my favorite place, to be in a small boat in those cypress swamps. I mean, it's freaking magical. It really is.
Oh, I agree. That's why I love people like, you go out there. I'm like, I say spooky, but the next word would be beautiful, because it is a juxtaposition of nature's best elements. It portrays like the beauty of a painting, yet under that surface, in that brackish water, there's things that can and will kill you. And there's things you can't see, and you're in their domain. And that's when I wrote the book Sinister Swamps. It was literally because I love that environment, and I love the mysteries that can be found there. And probably watching Scooby-Doo when I was a kid, like every haunted house is next to a swamp, and I just felt that magic of the swamp. And there's so many cryptid stories from those great areas.
So when did you stop watching Scooby-Doo? I'm just kidding.
Well, I still do. I tried to get my daughter into it, and she was all about it when she was a little bit younger.
That damn cartoon has really had an effect on a good effect on a lot of people. Actually, I think it has. Because it was about mysteries, you know.
Yeah. It just hit just right, with the mystery, and it seems kind of funny, but yeah, it's like of a certain generation, like In Search of, and Legend of Boggy Creek, Mysterious Monsters documentary, Chariots of the Gods, Scooby Doo, Johnny Quest, certain stuff.
Yeah. I haven't even thought about Johnny Quest. Oh my God, that was like we would run all the neighbor kids, all run over to one person's house to not miss an episode of Johnny Quest. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that show. I don't think that name's ever come up. I haven't thought about that in 40, 50 years.
Yeah, it was a great cartoon. I remember watching on Saturday morning, and that is adventure. Kids on adventure, and
well, there was a realism about Johnny Quest. It really wasn't a kid's cartoon in a lot of ways. It was more realistic. I remember the Komodo dragon episode, thinking, "Oh my God, Komodo dragon!" Like, ooh.
Yeah.
And it was cool because then I grew up, ended up doing a show on Komodo dragons too. So you think, that may have had an effect on me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and those are the thing, the innocence of youth and being presented with these mysteries in which even the Komodo dragon, I mean, yes, it's not a giant dinosaur like we picture Jurassic Park size, but there were, when that thing was being publicized, the innocence of a kid, we're just like, wow, everything's cool. Look at this lizard, and what's in the swamp and what's lurking behind that door. And I try to keep that kind of outlook when I'm researching these things, just to be well and balanced, though I'm serious-minded and skeptical, but at the same time, you keep that childlike wonder that sparked us in the first place.
Well, think about, do you ever think, Lyle, the effect you're having on kids with your books? And because you are, I guarantee you've already probably influenced thousands of children to grow up and want to become biologists or researchers or, something good because of your books. Does that ever hit you?
It does. There's been several times where school teachers have sent me an email and said, hey, I used one of your books in class. We're studying the Falk monster or whatever. And is it okay? The kids want to write you a letter. And I got a handwritten bunch of letters from kids saying, I love your book, or I want to be a monster hunter. And yeah, that's when you're like, wow, there are kids out there that reading this or looking at me like, well, I want to grow up and get a black cat and run through the swamp or whatever. So yeah, and I appreciate every bit of that because, when I was a kid, if a teacher showed me a book like that, I was all over it.
Yeah, it was something that triggered something in the people that have gone on to, just carry on and try to solving mysteries. Because if you really think about it, Lyle, that's what we're here for. It's got to be just to learn,
Yeah.
I mean, what else could it be? I don't think I'm here to eat McDonald's. So here for some reason. It's not for that. Tim Halloran said he is an influencer. And of course, Tim's written the book, The Bigfoot Influencers, which I would imagine you're a part of. You got to be in that book, Lyle.
Yes, he is.
Yes, I'm in it. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So there you go.
Of course. Sorry to change the subject on you guys, but William Nighthawk, who was on not too long ago, he wanted to ask you about the devil monkey. You think the devil monkey is a young Bigfoot potentially?
That could explain it. I mean, devil monkeys, are generally described as being smaller, sort of Bigfoot-like, yet a little more primate characteristics. So a young Bigfoot could certainly fit that bill. Though I've had people who have come forward with reports about juveniles that they do seem, other than the height and the size, do seem more just small Bigfoot. But devil monkey has always been one that's just, there's a gray area there where people, we start splitting these, humanoid creatures into these specific categories that we really don't have bodies here to examine. We have fleeting sightings. We have different witnesses reporting. So it's really hard to say specifically on any of that. What is a devil monkey? What is a Bigfoot? Is the Boggy Creek monster the same? What is a skunk ape the same as a Bigfoot, or is it all just Bigfoot? And people just see it from different angles and different ages. But I love the devil monkey reports, and certainly I think that's a good, if we want to try to simplify things and say, there's not 50 different species of various cryptid apes, there's a few, and devil monkeys could just simply be a regional adaptation for what is generally considered a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of other cryptids that are upright, what are your thoughts on the dogman or werewolves? I mean, you no doubt have investigated, talked to witnesses. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's another one that gets into a realm where it's harder to explain because I think Bigfoot, we can look at it very scientifically, and we can find examples, in current great apes, primates, hominids, other, it fits into that.
It matches the fauna. It matches the fauna. It makes sense.
Right. It makes sense.
And doesn't.
You start going into upright bipedal canids, their body, canids are just simply not built to do that unless they've needed to adapt. For example, look over cornfields or what have you. But how long would they walk upright? And then certainly, the reports of those are just starting to really get numerous enough to where we can really start to try to figure out what's behind this phenomenon. Because prior to about 5 years ago, no one ever asked me about a dog man. It just, I knew of cases, and there's classic cases, and, I always thought they were cool because you're like, oh, a werewolf over here. But it wasn't a thing. And then in the last 5 years, it's just become every single person asks me about a dogman, and there's dogman sightings everywhere. I'm not sure it's almost like a trend. But again, there's just not enough data to say, are these.
Right. But the sightings are pretty amazing. I mean, guys like Vic Cundiff and Josh Turner, they keep coming up with witness after witness after witness, including Wes Germer had a witness on not too long ago about a biologist that had a really amazing sighting while he was hunting, claims he even shot it, observed it for a long time, and you're just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
It's chilling.
Yeah, and I say, like any of these cryptids, I mean, even if 10% of those people actually saw what we define as a dogman, then that's enough to say that it's out there. And so now that there are so many, I mean, Vic has publicized so many. My good friend Josh Turner has, really brought out a lot of witnesses, and he had a great sighting here in Texas that I find very credible because I know Josh very well. And I've interviewed people personally, and so there again, it's like I have no doubt that there are individuals that came across a creature that fits the description of a werewolf that we just simply don't have explanation for. And, that opens up a lot of different theories as to what those could be. Are they natural? Are they supernatural? Or what are we talking about?
When you meet and you get to know people like Josh, they're just very, they have a lot of integrity. They're just not going to make that crap up. They don't need to. That was the other thing I was going to mention too about Boggy. the Legend of Boggy Creek movie? There's something about a Southern gentleman that has values, telling a story about a strange creature that really gets right to your heart. And I think that was one of the reasons the Legend of Boggy Creek movie was so powerful. Do you kind of agree with my observation? The people from the South they do seem, whether they do or not, obviously I would never know, but there's an integrity in their voice. You know, the way they were brought up, not to lie. And you just sense that when you listen to them tell a story. And that goes for you too. There's just an integrity in your voice.
Right. Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, and I think that you're right. The Legend of Boggy Creek, one reason that was so effective is it was real people. These weren't actors trying to reenact. They're literally people who, in some cases, the actual witnesses, you hear those voices with the accents that go with that area. And the fact that there's something about that Southern thing. It's like, well, this guy, he looks and sounds like he knows a lot about the woods. This guy looks like he goes hunting. And if he saw something like that, it puts more credibility than, say, somebody from New York in the middle of the woods with the accent. They may be the best hunter on earth, but there's something about that Southern presentation and the characteristics that do give it that authenticity, which, it was effective in that movie.
Yeah, and I really do think there is strong Southern values that do resonate through a person's voice. I think there's more to it than just their accent. It's just you listen to them and you go, you're not 90% sure they're telling the truth. You're 100% sure.
Right.
You just can't fake. It's a lot harder than people think to fake and tell a lie about something you saw.
It's kind of like, my mama, would whip my butt if I told a lie, kind of a thing. And the authenticity of that you felt like that was the way they were raised, their families, you do not make up stories. You not lie to people, and that carries through. And I know, because I've interviewed so many people, and a lot of them in the South where I like to concentrate research, that some of these people are just simply some of the best people I've met in my entire life. Some of the witnesses turn out to be friends, or I get to know their whole entire family. I know many families, and man, they're just some of the best people. And that adds so much credibility. Here's like, this person is not crazy. He's not lying. This family is just genuine. They saw something that we just can't explain,
Yeah, it's really it's interesting how few people are just making up stories. Yeah, they could be mistaken, but they believe what they saw. I bet you haven't run into that many people that were just blowing smoke at you.
Not a lot, and you can snip those out pretty fast. I mean, especially the longer you do it. But certainly there's just always that BS meter where I'm like, this sounds too incredible. This person sounds, I don't know, just get a good sense. And I don't need to include those people in the data, because there is plenty of other credible people. So I listen and nod and say, oh, thank you. But boom, that's off the record. I don't believe that. We're moving on.
How far back do the Fouke sightings go?
The first one, the oldest one, I dated to 1908.
Oh, wow.
And it's a second-hand story, so it wasn't a first-hand. Obviously, it's old, but that was the approximate date given. And, the movie, the press in the back of the movie implies that it had been seen since the 40s, but that was because the newspapers, it wasn't even known publicly till 1971 when it made the newspapers. But people then came forward and said, yeah, I was in the 50s and the 40s. So it went back, but I found stuff that went back even further by just talking to the locals and getting stories that were known there, but had never been made public or weren't in the movie. So it's something that goes back a long way. And certainly that seems logical, because if there's a creature or family of creatures living in that area, well, they needed to have been there all this time. They didn't just pop up in 1970. So it adds credibility to the case.
Is there a particular, two questions. Is there a particular season that most of the sightings happen down there? And are there many ongoing reports in the last 10 years?
There are ongoing reports. I get a handful each year of what I consider credible reports coming from that area, and that's mixed between, it's mostly locals that are in the area, but occasionally, you get somebody who's visiting, or sometimes a Bigfoot researcher will give you a possible sighting, like myself. So yeah, it's something that is just continuing and continuing. And the seasons, I've roughly kind of, I've documented everything, and some of them people give a specific date. Some of them are saying, well, it was somewhere maybe, 1978 or whatever, they're going back. But in general, I found that February is, oddly enough, a time for sightings. And that could be that the tree cover is less. You can see further into the woods, or perhaps they're moving because there's not as many hunters. You get sightings in October, early October, that's a good one. And then late spring, even into the early summer. They cluster, but in general, it could just be just about any old time, except for in the thick of hunting season. You just kind of get less stuff. I think they hunker down or move on, because obviously that's not, there's a lot of folks that hunt up there,
Interesting. So what about, I think somebody had asked, is there any dogman sightings in the Fouke area or in the Arkansas area?
It specifically in Fouke, I have never gotten a specific dogman sighting. There was one witness that in about 10 years ago, and this was a really, really good witness. This woman was from Texarkana, which is the closest big city. She was a wildlife photographer named Jennifer, and she was down in this Smith Park area where there's roads that go to some of the sloughs that come off the Sulphur River in some of the swampy areas. And she was down there trying to get a shot of an alligator. And this was midday, maybe afternoon, 2 p.m. And she was driving slowly down this long dirt road. And I've been down that road many times. And she said that just suddenly, all of a sudden, she saw this thing run up, and it was on two legs, brownish, covered in hair, standing upright, ran across the road. And she said that, it fit. She was well aware of the legend of Boggy Creek monster, but she said she felt it had an elongated snout. So that was the only time where I got that. And of course, I kind of played the devil's advocate. I'm thinking, well, could it have had something in its mouth, a squirrel, something it was eating? Because, I went there and looked, and we reenacted the sighting to kind of see the distance and all that. It wasn't long enough to where she could study it well enough to say that it was or wasn't a snout. She just simply said it had what looked like a snout. So
that's interesting.
That was kind of dogmanish. But in general, in Arkansas, yes, there's dogman reports that have come up, over the years.
Yeah, it's weird how they goes from Texas and the dogman sightings just go up crazy amount.
Yeah.
So
clip something.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lyle, this is the clip you apparently shared with David Ellis.
Oh yeah.
very metallic sounding, which is interesting because I've heard that same kind of metallic-y, barky, growl, howl. I don't even know how to describe it. It's something different about it.
Yeah, I want to say that one came from the Big Thicket in Texas.
Okay.
When it's been a minute since I sent that to David. Yeah, that I was trying to think of a falc, but yeah, that one I believe came from the Big Thicket, which is an area that kind of be directly south of Falk on into Texas into what they call the Piney Woods, which is heavily forested area of East Texas, and the Big Thicket being an extremely rugged environment, very similar to the Sulphur River bottoms in Arkansas. And I got that from a hunter who I met in person, who, again, I felt super credible. I mean, this guy was he's just a guy who's like, he met me at a convention. It was actually a horror convention, not even a Bigfoot convention. He brought that up and said, I thought, man, that's a really strange howl. It sounds very much like what we consider Bigfoot vocalizations.
Yeah, apparently there's a, I mean, David teaches everything I know about audio, but he said there's a sweet spot between 600 hertz and 621 hertz that a lot of the Bigfoot calls have, which is really interesting. These guys are starting to apply a lot of math to the audios and be able to separate out individuals, and it's really super interesting what they do. You said it's from the hill. Dang it, I was looking at it. No, it disappeared. David wrote where it was from. That call. It's the Tell Lyle. There it is. It's Wolf Hill, Polk County.
Polk County.
Wolf Hill, Polk County. That's what it's labeled.
Right.
Remember.
Yeah, and it's great we got guys like David that can apply knowledge and technology to these things, because this is what, by cataloging these, and as you have a point of contact with David, he receives so many of these, he can begin to see those patterns, and he's finding the megahertz that fall into what we believe could be Sasquatch vocalizations. And that's great, because those are the talents that will, scientifically help in this pursuit.
Yeah. So we were talking about audio. There's one particular piece of video that really impresses me from down south in the swamp. Actually, maybe two, but one in particular because it shows a creature ripping open a cypress tree. And if you've ever tried to mess with cypress tree, that is some strong wood. Do you know what piece of footage I'm even talking about? I think it's called
Yes.
I think I saw a skunk ape. Yes,
that was filmed in Mississippi.
Okay.
I want to say 2011 or so, something like that. Not, it wasn't too long ago. Yeah, man, I think that's one of the best that I've seen. I mean, it is just hard. It's hard to say it's anything but a big, huge, Bigfoot-looking creature.
I know it's a real animal. So 100%, it's a real animal.
Yeah.
Is it a Bigfoot or some big black bear? That's the only question. But how many black bears have broad shoulders like that? Yeah,
it just doesn't. And I've seen bear in the wild. It just doesn't come off on a gut instinct as a bear.
No,
in a weird way, it's just sitting there and it's ripping at that tree and then stands up. You can tell it's huge. It's a shame that guy got shaken and ran, which always tends to happen, and then it got shaky. But I think that's pretty legit, if any of these.
Well, I was filming a black bear one time, and it suddenly bluff charged me, because I'm still here, so I know it was a bluff charge. And it suddenly charged me and chased me down a hill and kept following down this hill. But I know the feeling, because I've been a wildlife photographer, of what that guy was going through, because he's quietly filming. He's trying to be as quiet as he can. And all of a sudden that thing stands up and scares the living crap out of you. And he books. I don't blame him. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see any red flags is what my point is. Do you know who it is by any chance?
No, that's the weird part. I don't know who it is. I was even on the episode of Strange Evidence that looked at that, examined that clip, because you know that show examines just weird clips of creatures and stuff. And you know, I tried to find out. I've written about this in my Beyond Boggy Creek book, but I never could track down the person. I don't know. I would assume somebody knows.
There are people that just put it up. They just give it to the public and say, I don't want anything to do with this. That does happen.
Yeah. So, you know, I would love to talk to that guy, seeing as how that's such great video, but thus far, nobody has been able to determine.
I'm going to make an effort because I couldn't imagine a guy in a monkey suit standing in a snake-infested swamp, ripping a tree open with some kind of strength I have never heard of. You know, I'm sure you've messed around with cypress knees plenty.
Oh man,
And there's no way you're touching that one without an axe. Even an axe will bounce off a cypress tree.
Yeah, it's a hardwood, and there is no just ripping parts off. Whatever's doing that is very strong.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad that you're on board with that footage, because I think it's the real deal.
Yep.
It's just too bad we couldn't get a hold of the real tape and talk to the guy.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so what about some of the other mysteries that you've got into? You know, the spook lights and the orbs and I mean, there's just a whole litany of mysteries, missing people. What are your thoughts on all these other mysteries down in the swamps?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, those environments are just prone to these strange mysteries. So with writing Sinister Swamps, it gave me an opportunity to cover things that I haven't really covered before, because generally if I'm doing a cryptid case, it's just revolving around the cryptid, and maybe somebody saw some other weird stuff. But Sinister Swamps was fun because now I'm writing about a certain type of geographic location and including any weirdness therein. And certainly, I mean, these swamps, you know, people may not really realize it, but they're vast and huge, and certainly things could hide in there very easily. And thus, the missing people that always comes up when you're looking at these swamps, you can get turned around in there so easily. If you don't know where you're going, or you don't have, you know, your cell phone dies, you don't have any GPS. Missing people in those swamps, whether they're being taken by cryptids or just being lost, is certainly something that's the spooky part of that.
Is there any one tale you can tell, or one story of some missing people that seems strange? One that comes to mind, or some other story that really kind of gets to you, on whether it's even on Bigfoot, from that area.
Right. Well, there's certainly the Everglades. I remember a story about two people that had gone missing in a very small area at two different times that did not know each other. And it was one of those where a family had come to camp in one of the campgrounds near the Everglades, and the senior family member, an older guy, he was very experienced with hunting. You know, he'd been in camping and hunting all his life. He went out and just kind of was surveying the area while they were setting up camp and so forth. And within just a short period of time, he just went missing, just so missing that once they became aware that he was gone, by the next day, they had hundreds of people in there looking for him, and they never found a single trace. And it's like, how far could the guy have gone? I mean, it wasn't like he was on some remote trek across, you know, the Everglades or anything like that. He just was kind of poking around. He simply disappeared. Every trace of him gone. And then several years later, another individual in that same general area, same kind of thing. They found his truck parked there, no trace of the guy, not one single stitch of clothing, nothing.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you that you can't mess around with those areas. And the fascinating thing I found also with the swamps was that people reported seeing all manner of cryptids. I mean, you had reports, obviously, of Bigfoot, skunk ape type things, but phantom panthers, phantom dogs. You had people seeing pterodactyl-like leathery winged flying creatures. And then obviously into more paranormal areas where people are seeing what we call spook lights or orbs of these lights that are seemingly moving on their own. You know, these aren't headlights. There's no roads there. That sort of thing, that there's some sort of phenomenon going on, as well as ghostly figures. I mean, you know, these swamps were inhabited by early Native American, groups. They were, you know, as Europeans moved in here, the swamps were areas where it was rich with, sustenance and things to hunt and wood. And within those times, people would report seeing, strange figures. The Native Americans did. And then later the Europeans would report seeing what they thought were Native American type ghostly figures. So you had a variety of that. The Dismal Swamp in North Carolina had even a tale of a vanishing graveyard. Yeah.
One question that was on my mind is, you had alluded, because there's so many different cryptids, or, so many different names for maybe the same thing. Like, Dogman could be just a Bigfoot, or the devil monkey, or so forth. So do you think there are more flavors of your sauce or cryptids?
There's definitely more cryptids, and I'm only up to 2 flavors so far, but someday I hope to have as many flavors as there are cryptids, which is a tall order because there are so many cryptids.
So is your sauce good, Lyle?
It is good, and I gotta say, and I'm not saying that because I like it, and I do, but literally the feedback I've gotten from my friends and fans who've bought this or showed back up at a conference and decided they needed a whole entire case in case they didn't see me, till the next conference. People love it, and it seems, people could come off gimmicky here, but I have culinary skills as well, and have gone for a flavorful sauce as opposed to some gimmick that's super hot that's gonna, roast a Bigfoot or whatever. It's this is quality monster sauce.
Did Lyle pay you, Alex, to do this?
Yeah, he's gonna give me 100 after the show.
Oh, okay.
No, just kidding. But I did have a lot of people in the comments were mentioning that they love your sauce, so I had to put that up there. And
there you go.
It's interesting. So you mentioned culinary. So is that also a passion of yours? Cooking?
It is. Somewhere years ago, I decided that I should learn how to cook, and the way I did that was, way back, the Food Channel actually had shows about how to cook, not shows about drama or cooking contests. And I just sat down and I just could watch them do something like Emeril Lagasse, and I could go and somehow I could kind of recreate it and then spin it on my own. And then I liked, more spicy Southern foods. And so I actually had an idea that I could do this like rock and roll cooking show at one point, and then, which I had, ironically later I did do television shows in the cryptid world, but so yes, I've developed a lot of cooking skills in the kitchen, and so that's why the hot sauce comes out of that, not just sort of like, well, I need a hot sauce.
So if you were offered a cooking show based around like cryptids and I don't know, unique, interesting dishes, maybe based in these local towns where a lot of these sightings were happening, would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I mean, if as long as it can play the monster thing in there and the rock and roll, yeah. I think
Well,
that,
I gotta say, there's one thing about you. You literally are the guy that has made every passion like a part of what he does for a living, like full on. Like you are living the dream. Like I know that's like easy cliche thing to say, but literally everything you're interested in, you've gone out and done it and made it happen and tied it all together in such a unique, interesting way.
right, and it is. Sometimes I feel like it's they're trying to herd it into something, um, but yes, thank you, and that just comes from a love of doing it and
dedication
to it, I guess, and again, quality products. And like
Right.
the
All right,
hot
Glenn,
sauce, it's good.
Glenn came up with a title for your cooking show.
Yeah.
Cooking with Monsters.
Right. Oh, that's good. Glenn and I have been out camping many times and enjoyed some camp food. But is that cooking, cooking with like we're roasting monsters, or we with Bigfoot? Hey, our guest today is Bigfoot. We're going to cook up some,
They could just be some really crabby people.
That's right. Yeah, we're crabby people. Like,
Yeah, just crabby people. Crabby people. Cooking with Monsters.
right. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that can go with that.
Well, it could be like hardened criminals. You could, cook with all people like
serial killers. We're gonna rehab this guy into a great chef. You can use that knife in a lot of different ways.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of room to work here. I'm with you.
Yeah, people are seeing franchise opportunities already here. So
Monster Mash.
you never know. Hey, I know the producers of Bizarre Foods. We'll get you hooked up with them.
Right. Yes.
I'm joking.
I know, and that's one of the problems is I can create a franchise worthy type thing. It's like, but it's always like, do I have time for that?
Yeah, as if you weren't doing enough already.
Right.
So just pile some more onto your plate.
Oh, that's what I keep doing, Alex. I just keep piling more on. Now I'm like, let's see.
Yeah.
Go to bed at 5, got to be up at 8 every day. Like, that's nice. That's a nice schedule. Today, it was beautiful out, Lyle. It was 71, sunny, not a cloud in the sky, robin blue skies, and I could not even go outside today.
Yeah, well, maybe you should move here. It was 107 in Texas, and it's been like 105 to 108 every day for weeks. It's terrible.
That sounds pretty hot and sweaty.
Yeah,
so, okay, speaking of hot, creatures from the south, I always hear they're more aggressive. Cryptids, they're smaller, meaner, ornerier. Do you think there's any truth to that, or do you think it's just...
I think there is, and people do ask me that, a lot of times when I'm speaking, like, are they really, so aggressive? And I say, yeah, you need to stay out of our woods, man. But in truth, they could very well be more aggressive because of the environments. I mean, literally it's 107 and you're wearing a fur coat. Humans are coming in your area. You could be more ornery, and certainly the legend of Boggy Creek really played up that image of this, vicious Bigfoot that would come and try to get in your house or kill your dog or your livestock and chase people. That kind of, in a way, built up this reputation that is not totally true, because there is as many Bigfoot sightings in the South that are just, I saw this thing and it ran across the road, or it walked out and walked back. There's only those cases that, for whatever reason, the creatures seem to be more aggressive, and I think that's animal nature itself. You can run across bears in the wild, and most of the time they just kind of turn around and go the other way. But on occasion, you get in the right spot, or you meet the right bear, or that maybe their young one is behind you, you're in big trouble. And I think that's true for these creatures like Bigfoot. It would be the same kind of thing. If they perceived you as a threat, they could very well come at you. And that's not exclusive to the South, though a lot of reports are. But if we think about the traditional Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, you date back to those Native American tales, they all perceived the thing as stealing children and women. It was all kinds of terrorizing tales of Bigfoot, picking up Albert Ostman and taking him off miles, and all this kind of stuff. But
so Lyle, how has your relationship changed with like you and the woods and the bogs, and like, are you more comfortable out there now than like you were earlier on in your life, or are you more uneasy?
Yeah, head
knowing
on
all
a
the
swivel.
things you've researched.
Yep, head on a swivel because of all the stories you've heard.
no, I'm way more comfortable. I was always pretty fearless, I guess, because that's the way my dad was, and I could not show fear. Even though occasionally he'd go, you hunt over here and I'll hunt over there. And he'd just throw me out there and it would get dark. I don't know where he is or where I'm at. I'm hearing stuff moving around, but those kind of made me realize that, I've been in really scary situations and I was okay. So I'm okay. And certainly now I can paddle. I could go out in the swamp by myself at night in a canoe and paddle up there, with no problem. I mean, it's not that fun. I like to have somebody, to converse with or whatever, or take a woman on a date to the swamp. But
I like your style.
why take them to a lame, take them to Olive Garden? I'm like, hey, you want to go out in this crazy swamp where a person just saw a lizard man? That's
Are you going to get married soon, Lyle? Like 5 kids?
Well, I was at one time, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, but I have a great girlfriend, and she is willing to go out there and enjoy the spooky cryptid outdoors. But yes, I'm more comfortable. It's no problem. I'll chase down a cryptid if I have to, because I'm trying to get everybody that great picture or whatever.
What do you take when you go out into the woods now? Do you take any precautions? What kind of equipment?
Well, I mean, I usually carry a sidearm, and that's not for cryptids. That's because I'm going in areas where there's a lot of feral hogs down here that if you run up on one, they can be very dangerous. I don't know, meth heads, whatever you might run into in the swamp. I want to be protected that way. So that does give me an advantage, being armed. As far as, I'm never been a really big gadget guy. I think, again, I just used to go in the woods with a bow and arrow, and that was it. And I've kind of that Tarzan, Rambo, all he needs is a knife. They don't even need a shirt or nothing. Just go in the woods and, put some mud on. I'm more like that. I do have a camera. I've got a small thermal, so I can see at night, and and I've got a good knife and a gun, and I'm there, so that's all. I'm pretty comfortable.
BH has a question. It says, greetings from British Columbia. It's an honor to speak with you, Lyle. What is the most bizarre cryptid phenomena you have ever investigated?
There's been some weird ones that have come across, every once in a while. You get the kind of consistent reports, and then all of a sudden, boom, I saw this triangular shaped, transparent looking thing walk across the path in front of me. Do you know what it was? I'm like, you're just like, what? It's like, sounds like the Predator, but in a geometric shape. That was one.
That was real. This is a real story you're telling us.
Yeah, this is a real story.
Jeez.
Some of the creepier ones. There There was one in the Brazos River in Texas where somebody, a very credible witness, had told me that they saw what looked almost like a upright walking alligator come up and walk up as they were dropping trot lines in there. And they just turned around and ran for their truck. And I'm just thinking, I mean, it's not even a humanoid lizard man. This is like a walking upright alligator thing. I mean, it's such a movie monster. Really weird, hard to explain, but I mean, I'm telling you, this guy seemed legit. In another part of Texas, there was a creature, and I talk about this on one episode of my podcast, of people in a neighborhood that was near some woods and a railroad track saw this humanoid thing walking up the street that had a tail and looked like it had hooves. It almost kind of like gave me this idea of a devil-looking thing or something. Just doesn't. I mean, is it a goat man? Is it a lizard man? Is it a devil man? What is it? Really spooky, and it was so legit that several people had called 911. There was people, irate people, because these kids had seen it, ran inside and got their parents, and several of the parents in this neighborhood went out and saw it. And the 911 operator got multiple calls, and I was able to talk to the 911 operator and the whole deal. I mean, this actually happened. I talked to one of the police officers that worked for that department because they had to respond to this, and even they were scared. It looked like it went into some old abandoned building, and the police wouldn't even go in there.
Can we get back to the upright walking alligator? That's just...
Yes, that one...
it's crazy.
That one was also, I found it credible because there was another person at another time in that same general area of the Brazos River that described seeing something very similar. It was getting dark. You could hear something walking, and it sounded like a person kind of splashing up the riverbed there and looking up and seeing what they described as some kind of a giant lizard-looking thing that was hulking and upright. So a lot of times where you get one report, and it may be years later, boom, somebody else tells you something like that. And you're like, these people don't even know each other. But those are just those strange ones that sort of fall between the cracks, where they're in these. We have these categories: dog man, Bigfoot, lizard man, chupacabra, and then you have those ones that come in the cracks, which intrigue me because they're just monstrous.
I don't know. Those one-off ones, in a lot of ways, are more credible than in some ways, because it takes a lot of guts to come forward with a upright walking alligator. If I saw one and believed I really saw it, I wouldn't tell anybody.
Right. Yeah. People think you're crazy. And this guy, the only reason I even found out about this is because I had run a little news piece in a small Texas publication asking about something else about cryptids, because I had been to this town and they ran this little thing. Well, this guy contacts me and said, hey, I don't know anything about that, but I saw something that I can't explain, and I don't know who to tell it to. And so he told me the story, and again, I felt this guy, I mean, he was a good Southern, just a good old boy from Texas, the kind of guys I've hung out with many times, and I'm like, he ain't making this up. This is not some jokester,
Have you ever run into any bizarre animal mutilations where dogs have been turned inside out, or just really weird stuff? Once in a while I hear some of this stuff from up here, and I don't know about down there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't run across anything that I thought was strange. I mean, I've come across dead hogs and dead dogs, but they didn't seem to have been, everything either hit by a car or some bozo shot it, for no reason. But certainly I have had witnesses say that in conjunction or in an area where they had a strange experience, they would note, well, there was a livestock or a guy found his cow or his goat, mutilated, or many times they'll say like the blood was drained. So those things circulate even down in the South. And, I think there's some really spooky stories about when witnesses see a Bigfoot trying to lift a big hog over a fence, where they've got domesticated or hogs out there, and these they go outside and they hear this thing squealing and they see a Bigfoot trying to take it.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's just crazy.
Have you? I would imagine you're pretty much up to every possible fact ever on the Lake Worth monster, which is kind of a bizarre case, but it was short-lived, I believe, where it was kind of a goat man, Bigfoot kind of cross thing.
Yes, yeah, definitely. That's one that's about 30 minutes from where I live to Lake Worth.
Nice. Oh.
And though this all kind of was made public in 1969, so I wasn't on the case quite then, and didn't quite learn about that till later. But yeah, I've investigated that. Been there, talked to many people over the years who were actually on site and either had experiences or could tell me about that. In fact, my new podcast, Monstro Bizarro, the very first episode is Lake Worth Monster, where I lay out all the stuff that went on and all the stuff I've discovered. And you're right, it's sort of a goat man, but people mostly described it as a whitish colored Bigfoot.
Yeah. So apparently what jumped out of a tree and landed on a guy's car is what started the whole thing?
Right. The first incident was July 10th, 1969, in which several couples were in cars parked at this area of Lake Worth called Greer Island. And back then it was pretty remote, wooded, dirt roads, and a place where, Lover's Lane, essentially, where people could hang out. And all of a sudden they said, this couple, they were married and everything, they said this thing jumped out of a tree and landed on the car and started trying to pull the woman out of the car. And the guy, the husband, obviously freaked out. He managed to start the car and put it into gear and drive off, and the thing ran off into the woods.
Yeah.
He went up to a cafe, used the payphone to call the police. The police came out and listened to the story and all that, and he showed them a big scratch on the car and said this thing scratched it. They went down and investigated, and of course the thing was long gone by then, but that made it into the Fort Worth Star-Telegram newspaper, which publicized it. And by the next day, there was about 40 people down there at that Greer Island. And later in the evening, they all saw this whitish colored upright creature looking thing on a ridge. And they said it took a tire and threw it down and it ran off into the woods. Now this is about 40 people who literally saw it. I mean, you don't always get that many witnesses. So that was sort of the start of the case, and then it kind of went on from there. A lot of other sightings and craziness that ensued.
With all the books you've written, all the stuff you've researched, all the experiences you've had, what are you currently excited about? What are you currently interested in?
Well,
other than all his other successes and his new hot sauce line, and he's working on a successful podcast too, I might add.
And a cooking show.
A cooking show, a podcast.
Yes.
There's always other things that are going. I do have a new book coming out October, and the subject is Texas Bigfoot, and that's just as a Texan, as a Bigfoot guy, it's one that I think should have been written before, and I'm glad to do it.
It's long overdue.
Long overdue.
Absolutely.
Because Texas, people are like, Texas Bigfoot, but Texas has, I can't even tell you how many classic and great cases: the Lake Worth Monster, the Sabine thing, all these others. And Texas is fun because it's so diverse. On the western portion, it's like a desert, in El Paso, and you get to the piney woods of the east, and it's like thick hardwood forest.
Mhm.
And in between all of that, you have the most bizarre cases. Even out in the El Paso area, you have the Horizon City monster, which was this sort of Neanderthal type Bigfoot seen there that got newspaper coverage. All this stuff over the years. So I finally wrote that book, and it includes a lot of my own sort of journeys and perceptions as I document the classics and the modern sightings. So I've been excited about just doing that for my Lone Star State here, and that's what's been in work, and the podcast. People have been asking me that for years. I'm thinking, okay, I'll try to fit that in.
You can stop now, Lyle. You can stop now.
You're making us all look bad.
Yeah,
Well,
it's enough.
you guys got an awesome podcast.
I'm waiting for the. Well, one thing you could do, and I bet you could sell 1 million of them, are your hats.
Well, people have asked about that, but
In
then
fact, I was thinking we have an auction tonight. Sell your hat, one autographed hat.
that's in my will to be. It actually is. It's become such a thing, and I started wearing this in the band years and years ago in my band Ghoultown. And then I sort of kind of carried that on into as I was doing TV shows and stuff, and but I wear other hats and stuff just in the woods, and eventually at conventions and stuff, people they just like, "Where's your hat?"
It is a good looking hat. Actually, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I just simply said, okay, I'm going to wear that hat all the time, every time. No other. I got a camo sort of thing that I wear when I'm in the field, because I don't want to wear this out in the swamp if I lost it. I just can't find another exactly like it. But
I do wonder how much we could get for that hat if it was autographed. I just wonder. I bet you it would sell for quite a bit.
I'm sure it would.
I bet you it would. It would shatter records for any hat ever sold.
Right.
Okay.
I think Lauren Coleman has got his eye on it for the international.
Yeah.
or the Monster Mart.
I can only imagine Lauren wants that hat in his museum.
I'm sure. So he's got an action figure. With a hat on. So at least he's got the replica. So far. He's the real guy yet.
We haven't got into the action figures yet. We're going to leave that one for some other time.
See, I think you should bundle the books with a hat. Not that exact hat, because that is the legendary hat. We can't be giving that away, right?
Right. Well, that's an idea. Although, what happens if 40 of the fans show up to a conference and they're all wearing the hat? How do you find me?
That's true. That's true.
I don't know.
We could do them. We could make the cheap Chinese.
Yeah. It's just sort of like, it's definitely not the one, but it's cool. It's like a Blackburn's hat.
Alex, can you check into that tomorrow?
You take over that.
Yeah, the knockoff hat style.
Yeah.
I'll just license it.
Real cheap ones. We want them in that $10 range.
The Monster Hunter Halloween starter kit.
Exactly. Yes. That would be
$29.99. Don't give him any more.
He's gonna go on Alibaba tonight.
No,
I'm all for all of it, as long as you're helping me do those businesses. I'm beyond capability.
Oh my God!
Don't give Doug any more ideas.
Yeah, don't give me any ideas.
What we need is monster sauce in more retail locations, because people have constantly asked me, where can I get it in? I'm in Alabama, where can I get it? I'm like, it's just something that I started to I wanted to just put it on my table because I thought it was cool. And then it became like, okay, all the Bigfoot museums carry it, the gift shops, there's a few other retailers. But, to work a business like that, you need somebody dedicated.
Yeah.
Because it just becomes, you know what I'm saying?
And the thing is, with a food company, they actually have the potential to be worth $1 billion.
I think so. It's distinctive. In the places I do get it, like there's a gas station in Oklahoma called Sasquatch, which is a no-brainer. But this is just a regular. At the end of the day, it's a gas station with a convenience store with a cool name. They sell tons of it. if I could get it in a gas station like that and all over the U.S., I think it would be humongous. But
So
I need to
Central
call them.
Bigfoot wants to get you on Shark Tank.
Yeah, I need Shark Tank, man.
There we go. Sure. Huh.
So, and I have a new flavor coming out probably in the fall, a hotter one. I've kind of gone up in the scale. But slowly but surely.
Do they have distinctive names?
Yeah. Well, the first one's called Rogue Red Chili, and that was the original. The green one is called Swamp Sensation, and the new one will be a habanero-based sauce with a cool name. I was going to put different cryptids, actually. So the first one's sort of a Bigfoot. And then with the swamp one, I was going to kind of do it in a creature from the Black Lagoon, but not. Or swamp monster. And then I was going to do like a dogman. But honestly, I got the artwork and I said, that one creature just looks that I've got now. I'm just going to do different colors and keep it simple. So I ended up back with that same Bigfoot looking dude as the monster sauce monster. And then, but yeah, I need t-shirts. We could do the monster sauce monster figures.
Somebody mentioned bourbon. Pine Island Research, Jeff there, he said he was thinking on starting a bourbon line. I think you should steal his idea. Just outright steal it. Just,
Well, see, I wanted to do Boggy Creek Moonshine because, Boggy Creek, Moonshine kind of matches up, but
hook you up with Dan Aykroyd.
I'm only one dude, so I'm like, I want that, but I can't do it.
Oh,
so he can do his bourbon. That's awesome.
All right, Jeff, you can have your bourbon idea back, and Lyle doesn't want it.
I'll sell it back to you, man. Let's go. We'll do this.
Royalty deal.
Royalty deal. Just give me 2%.
2%. You can put your face on it.
All I want to do is just crack dumb jokes now.
But it's not even a joke. He's going to do this. And he's going to make it way more successful than we could ever imagine.
He's totally taking me out of the creepy mode. Now I'm in the business and funny.
Yeah, see, this can happen real quick because, all the crazy stuff I got going.
But honestly, how do you balance this? Do you like do one quarter? I'm going to write a book and that's my focus. And then I'm going to go on a ton of conferences and then I'm going to go on tour. How do you how do you balance that?
It has to be juggled all simultaneously. When they're conference, I'm getting booked for conferences all the way. Next year, my June is now filled up because I'm booking so many stuff all the way for next June. So I'm constantly having to manage myself, concentrate to write the book, get the podcast done. There's always somebody wanting to shoot a sizzle reel for something. And what else? Going and traveling, doing the conferences, ordering books so I have something to sell there. It's crazy. And that's all I do is work or go in the woods.
Yeah.
That's my time off, or hang out with my daughter. But to me, my work is my passion and fun. Absolutely. So it's not work. I can just work as long, like if I sleep like Doug for a few hours, I'm cool as long as I can do this. Now, if I had to go to a job, I would not be as enthusiastic, and I would only give them 8 hours. But I'll give me a 16-hour day or whatever. I don't care. No problem.
Well, as busy as you are, you still seem just so calm and collected. Like I would be tearing apart at the seams if I had anywhere close to your schedule.
I don't know. Somehow I just do it. I don't know. It is a strange thing, and sometimes it's overwhelming. There's just too much coming at me, and I have no admin assistant, though I need somebody just to even handle the bookings and the monster sauce and the whole. If I did that, I'd have a lot more books out because I can only get one every 2 years just because I don't have time.
I was surprised, Alex, you didn't coordinate with Lyle to get one of his music clips up from one of his albums.
Yeah, was there a clip you wanted to play on the website here that you're particularly proud of?
Our newest video, Bullets Don't Argue, is good. You might it's kind of got a long intro-ish, so you may have to skip it on a bit. Go to the videos.
Okay.
So do a yell out to YouTube. Don't give us a copyright strike.
So that first video there at the top is a good one. Like I said, you may have to kind of skip about a minute into it just to get on to the.
So Lyle, you're the owner of this music, correct?
Here, let me.
Yes,
I got to reshare this.
We have permission to play it.
You have permission to play it.
Good. All right, YouTube, you can suck wind.
1 second here.
Our distributor will even give us like a copyright thing, but it's a circle because I own the music. So yeah, skip a bit more. There you go. There you go. You crank that up there.
A crow flies a western sky, the twitching of an nervous eye, the clicking of a chambered round, another body hits the ground. Riding on a desert plain, a killer on a southbound train, dancing on the setting sun. The hero bites the dust, a coffin full of dollars. Don't a rich man make when you're blind and lifeless. Make no mistake, when it's all said and done, who's lost to one? Take me, get all around, and laughing, worth the price. Take me, get all around, bullets don't argue. You lay down your life. Oh yeah. A lonely howl in the night, a shadow in the firelight, the echo of a dead man's tune, a god that spells certain doom. Take me, get all alive. Bullets don't argue. You lay down your life. A shot of whiskey in a jar. Vendors that have gone too far. Another dollar to be made. Another bounty to be paid. Coffin full of dollars. Don't a rich man make when you're blind and lifeless. Make no mistake, when it's all said and done, who's lost to one? Oh, yeah. Take me, get all around, and laughing, worth the price. Take me, get all around, bullets don't argue. You lay down and take me, get all around, and laughing, lay down your life. Well, let's drive you. Oh, yeah.
You have been killed, Lyle.
Yeah, by my girlfriend.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
good.
what
It was good. It was good. It's, very well done. Who directed music videos?
that was directed by Todd Jenkins. He's a Dallas guy that acts and directs. He's a real good at music videos. So
Very good. Yeah, you better give us
Awesome.
copyright
Yeah.
permission. We'll lose our whole show. We'll be yanked off the air.
It'd be worth it.
I don't know. It should be good because I started my own after being on record labels way back when I was younger and saw no money, although they did put us on tour. I then started my own label in 1996, and which turned out to be a very wise thing as things went forward. So now I own all of the Ghoultown music and everything. So that's helpful.
It's a good move. Good move.
Which I might add is a full-time job unto itself.
Yeah.
In addition to all this, but I don't do as much band. I just can't tour around like I used to.
Someday somebody's going to do a conference, hire you to speak, and hire your band. Someday.
Well, they often ask about that, and I'm like, well, you ready to get the facility to be able to back, the PA and then
Would you be open to doing that, given that the right facility, the right obviously amount of money to support the band? And
it's possible, yeah. If because those guys have to, I can't. Hey, let's go do this. They have to be paid, and it's a lot of expense because there's 6 band members in our road crew. Yeah. It just turns into hotel rooms and all this. And as soon as I tell somebody how much it costs, they're just like, "What?" But that's just barely that's just sort of a minimum. We don't even charge. It's not like
just travel and lodging and food.
Yeah, it can quickly add up just to do one deal. So.
Well, good. Everybody got to see a different side of Lyle.
Right. And people will say, man, I watched your videos. They expect me in real life, I guess, to get up on the tables and jump around. But it's like I'm pretty low key. But, it's just a performance, and I just do what I do.
Well, nobody has combined all of the loves that you have into one nice little neat package. And like Lyle, we're already 3 minutes over, Alex. We should probably let Lyle go ahead and plug anything you want. Tell people where they can get your books and how they can write you a letter.
Yes. Well, of course, you can get all of my books on Amazon, and you can also get books from my web store at lyleblackburn.com, where you can also get other cool stuff like Boggy Creek t-shirts and so forth. And you can listen to my podcast on all your favorite platforms, Apple, Amazon, all those. And if you like to watch these cryptid documentaries, I've narrated and been involved in many of them with small town monsters. And if you go to Amazon Prime and search Lyle Blackburn, they will come up and you can check those out as well.
Oh, that's one thing I really do want to compliment you on, Lyle. Your narration on those is amazing. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a thing that just sort of happened when they did the Boggy Creek and decided they wanted me to narrate it. And then people were like, man, that was great. So then I carried it forward.
That could be a whole nother business for you.
It could. See, there's that. It's just literally so many that every day I get up and go, what am I doing today? A movie? That's cool.
See, that's where you and Doug have a lot in common.
Yeah,
right.
A little bit, but I'm behind the scenes. I'm behind the scenes, but yeah, no, I've had a flavor. I've known him, when I was had Monster Quest, Lyle. I had I was running and owned the biggest restaurant and nightclub in probably, I don't know, certainly the whole Midwest. And it was the best restaurant nightclub in the country myself.
Yeah.
But to do that while I had a hit TV show on, it's kind of overwhelming. You wake up and you go, really? How did I get this lucky?
Right.
And a manufacturing company.
Oh, yeah, I love that too, and some other things. But you have to pinch yourself and go, how could I have been that lucky? So I have experienced the magic. Yeah, it's really cool when everything comes together. But you're young. You've got a long ways to go, dude.
Well, I can only imagine if the two of you put your heads together, what kind of trouble you could get in.
Well, we dabbled in that early on, and of course, things go as they go. We're only,
yeah,
but I like I say, Monster Quest has been a big influence, and you're an example of a guy that I respect because you put out quality stuff and you do good work, and I like that.
Thank you, Lyle. Well, let's plan on maybe chatting a little bit more often here. Maybe we can figure out a way to get in really big trouble.
I'm sure we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Good night, everybody, and
take care, everyone.
Yep. Bye.
It's been another great day.
Enjoyed it.